very deep in this conversation, we may go into some deep subjects that are perhaps a little bit deeper than we would normally go. Well, we will only touch on things that bridge spirituality and the realm of scientific understanding that we are just coming to, but which the mystics have understood for thousands of years. And we'll pick up where where the group closed last night, because there are different ways of interpreting different Shabad and different mantra that open doors to transcendent function, to a higher reality. But it's a paradoxical bridge or tunnel from the reality that we are held within, this matrix, and what is beyond that. So I thought we will, towards the end, have a second look at both the Guru Gayatri mantra and the healing mantra that we practiced last night, because there is additional knowledge and additional experience that both the mantras hold, and they center around the conversation I was thinking to have this evening. There is a framework to all reality, and that framework exists at every level. It's fractal in nature. It means the way a leaf grows in a certain pattern, like an oak or a maple leaf grows at a pattern that seems to repeat itself on larger and smaller scales at every point you look at. The same way when you look at a coastline, if you are standing on the beach next to some rocks and the sand is intermingled among the rocks and the water's intermingled among the sand and the rocks, if you're standing looking at your feet, the same overall shape, if you zoom out 100 meters, the area that you're in will have a similar shape to it. If you zoom out 100 miles, the same shape of the interface between the land mass and the water will have a similar shaping to it. Well, this is true of this ultimate framework, that what the mystics described, what the gurus, 10 gurus described as the alchemical marriage. It's what we call in the West, the Western mystics. The alchemical marriage is this marriage between the spirit and the soul. Well, there's been much misunderstanding over the last 2,000 years, particularly the last few hundred, as we lost sight of what the mystics were talking about. Because there was a time when religion was more revered, when religion was the meeting place of art and science, that science was the more masculine human egoic way of looking at the world. It was the more Western hemisphere of the brain, which we call the logos, the word, orientated. So it was about logic. But art was about the intuitive understanding of reality. And we call that magic, as in mother, but as in magic. So the religion once was recognized and revered as the meeting place between the intuition and the intellect, between sensation, physical sensation, and understanding. The thing is, understanding is always the booby prize. The understanding happens after the event. And when we understand that, we'll begin to understand both the nature of the box that we're in, that we're trapped within. There's a boundary at which the mind is limited. But we can use the mind to go beyond the mind. And this is what Guru Nanak spoke about so much. The one who conquers the mind conquers the world. There's something that used to be called Felix Mundus. Felix Mundus literally means the blessed. Felix Mundus is the. Sorry. Let me repeat that. There was once something that we called the Undus Mundus. That is the one world, but that was thought of in more advanced terms. In the last century, we began to recognize this idea of one field theory, that the one world is this one field that everything comes from, a field of nothing that everything rises from and everything goes back to. And this happens because when we began to study quantum physics, we recognized that this field was a field of energy, that we're swimming through a field of energy and we are actually energetic beings. And the thought was, if we could cool things down enough, we could quiet the field, we could reduce the potential energy to nothing and then observe things in contrast to that. But the problem was first the mathematics, and then the practical evidence when we experimented. The closer we got to this absolute absence of heat, we found an absolute abundance, an infinite abundance of energy. So there's this quality that we're in a field of energy that we're only seeing a tiny portion of. And we've come up with names for what that other substance is: dark matter, black matter, dark energy, black energy. The reason I mention this is what we've come to realize is that the way to access our true nature is by doing what scientists did, to become absolutely still. This is what we call meditation. The The precept for meditation is to adopt a position where you can be physically as still as possible. When we connect to the heart, the pulse actually slows. When we're in the normal fight, flight, danger mode that most of us live in today, we're breathing 20 breaths per minute, sometimes more. And the threshold of meditation is when we can slow our breathing rate down to 12 breaths per minute or slower. This is also true, ultimately, but it's a more difficult threshold, is our pulse rate. The just adopting a vegetarian diet tends to take down the pulse rate of the average human being of somewhere in their 70s, possibly even 80 beats per minute. 90 is not unusual. But slowing it down, the average pulse rate of a vegetarian, at least from the studies when I was first adopting a vegetarian lifestyle, vegetarian diet, it was below 60. It was 58 beats per minute. So under this 60 threshold. But it is possible to reduce the pulse rate to well below that, to 20 beats, even 12 beats per minute. But this is a state of deep, deep meditation. And it happens when we align our breath with our heart center. This connects to our core. And now we're resonating with a deeper, slower frequency of vibration. And when we do this, we're connecting with the earth itself. We're connecting with what we can call our song, our soul song, which is in harmony with the vibration of the earth. We have, we could say we vibrate, the human DNA vibrates at the note of a G, and the earth is vibrating at the note of a C. And the G is a fifth in music harmonics. It's a fifth of a C. We are actually completing a chord our Mother Earth is vibrating at. And when we're vibrating in sync with the world around us, we automatically come into a state of peace. We call this state, we can call this the alchemical wedding. It's a state where the body, bride, in Sikhu, we recognize that all human bodies, man or woman, are the body bride. And this is an important, vital aspect of spirituality that we've lost, but we can apply to ancient scripture, because the spirit is the bridegroom. Guru and this om sound, because the spirit is connected with the mass that we fall into physical, dense experience. The consciousness, like fallen angels, the angel, the word angel relates to angle. And we descend through this angle of appropriate relationship with the collective consciousness. The spirit is only one. We all have a common spirit. But as we descend into this physical realm of density, we also descend into duality. And the duality is the duality of energy and matter. That
Siddhartha, can I ask you
matter,
a question?
yes.
Yeah. I had a friend when he used to go deep into meditation. You mentioned about the heart rate going down to 20, and he was
Hmm.
sharing that it actually goes much, much lower. When it goes so low, and at that time, you don't know whether you're dead or alive. And he says many a time he had to come out of it to see that he's still alive. Can you?
Absolutely. You can reduce, once you pass the threshold of 12 pulses per minute, now you're entering dangerous territory. But you can do it, and certainly four four pulses per minute is possible, and it is possible the fakirs. What we get the word faker, a faker from the uh, Arabic word fakir, which I believe actually originally comes from Farsi. So someone who could put themselves in a state of suspended animation and could be, for all intents and purposes, dead and buried for days at a time and then revive themselves. But that's a state of ultimate control. So I'm not advising anybody to practice that. But if you slowly reduce your breath rate, it can easily go down below 20 pulses per minute. Um, and that happens really when you can reduce your breaths to less than or to 4 breaths per minute. That's about 15 seconds each.
I'm
And
talking about the heart rate, not the
yeah, yeah.
breath.
So you reduce the heart rate by reducing the breath rate. That's how
Okay.
you do it. Yes. So when you connect with your heart center, not your physical heart, but your heart center,
Mm.
and you make a conscious connection to that, where you bring your awareness to behind the breastplate, behind the sternum, but in front of the spinal column, at about the height of the nipples. When you bring your awareness there and then start breathing with a connection to that, your breath rate will automatically begin to reduce. And as it reduces, if you then reach a state of, you'll know it's a sense of calmness that you can bring your awareness up to your temples. So that's behind the third eye, but between the temples, which means it's resting just above, almost equal to or slightly above the inner ear. And you can begin, as you're aware of your breath, but with your ears, you can begin to hear inside your inner ear. You can feel, and it translates as a sound, you can feel your pulse in your ears. But you'll also, if you practice this long enough, you'll hear something else, which is apart from the pulse. And sometimes you hear it before you begin to feel the pulse. And that's another sound. It's like white noise. And that's what we've called in the Sikh tradition the Naad sound current. You're beginning to hear the sound of energy itself. And once that happens, you can, without really attending to it, you're just aware of your pulse rate, feeling it in your ear against this background white noise. Your heart rate, which you're feeling and hearing in your ears now, begins to, of its own accord, reduce. It starts to move slower. And that then brings a heart brain coherence that now the mind and the body, the husband Lord and the body bride are engaging in a conversation which happens in what the Jewish tradition used to call the bridal chamber of the heart. So the soul is held by the blood cells, right? It's that your soul is in your blood, and it's held there by the electromagnetic field that an electron projects. So we what when we're malnourished and we're not functioning well, this idea of becoming anemic, we need to take on iron. And we need to be careful about how much iron we take on. You can take on too much iron in the body, but women traditionally have known to take high iron substance in their food intake to replenish the iron they lost during their monthly cycle. This is because the heart isn't just a meat pump, it's actually a vortex generator. And there's a physical electromagnetic relationship. So the pump itself, the muscle itself, is one muscle wound in such a way that it creates a vortex. So the vortex is pumping the muscle, and the muscle is pumping the vortex. The constriction of the muscle is in relationship with the vortex that it creates. So we know that a child, even before the heart exists, it's developed, the blood is pumping through the body, that the mother is bringing the blood into it. And it's previously thought that it's just the mother's pumping of the blood that causes the blood to move through the system of the embryo. But we're now understanding that actually there's already electromagnetic field vortex inside the child where the heart will eventually grow, that's distributing or adding to this process. So it's a symbiotic relationship between the physical pumping and the electromagnetic vortex that the pumping both creates and is created by. Is that making some sense?
Wow. Yes, it does. I got another question. If you
Mhm.
lack of iron, especially vegetarians, they tend to be lack of iron. How do you
Yes.
offset that?
Well, one, there's this really simple, and I don't know where you are, but here there's something called Filadex. Filadex is an iron supplement. Beetroot has a good amount of it. A lot of the uh, spinach. That's why Popeye in the cartoons, Popeye eats spinach because it's high in iron.
Okay.
So there's a lot of vegetables that we can get. Kale is good if I remember correctly, um, and we can talk about that maybe next week when we get into the more detailed conversation about how we can improve this state. But the point is recognizing what we're doing as a human being to enter the state of pure awareness that Guru Nanak spoke about. He said, by listening, all sins, sorrows, and suffering are erased simply by listening. What he was speaking about was entering the state of nothingness. So entering the state of pure awareness. In the Buddhist tradition, this is the uh, state of transcendent formation that we're, or transcendent function, where we're imitating what the field itself does. So to enter a state of higher dimensional awareness outside the carbon based matrix, we enter the state that exists before the matrix and the state that exists after the matrix, which we could think of as the state underneath or inside and the state over or outside. So it's a meta consciousness. And it doesn't mean meta consciousness as in overthinking. Overthinking is the problem. This is a state that's beyond thinking. So meta doesn't mean over as in above, it means beyond. It means outside of. So we're entering a state where we outside looking in. But this state of outside looking in, this is the more masculine or or father positioning, which is exactly in coherent positioning as the field of nothingness, of pure emptiness, of pure potential. So the Greeks divided time into three states of time, which we we know about generally two, but the third one is almost unheard of anymore in modern philosophy or modern physics. This idea of there's chaos, a state of chaos, which is not the negative, doesn't have the negative connotation that it's come to have. So the ancients used to consider chaos feminine and order or chronos masculine. But we've mistakenly, particularly since the rise of the feminist movement, of oh no, that was the masculine dominant hierarchy assigning femininity with negativity. But chaos wasn't considered negative. It was just pure potential. There was no form to it at all, but everything flows from it. And we've come to recognize that through what they call now chaos theory, that order of its own accord rises out of chaos. If you can collapse the form, if you can collapse any kind of form, out of the chaos that ensues, a new form rises out of that. And this fluctuation happens in a wave, a wave function that has seven aspects to it. So the it's like we, the human being, we're not human beings, we're potential human beings. We're human animals, where the angelic aspect, the human animal, the soul, is created because the eternal spirit sacrificed itself. The one spirit, the bridegroom, sacrificed itself to know itself, to experience itself. So the infinite, immortal, omnipresent, omnipotent being sacrifice itself to a limited experience. And that's what the soul is having. It's having this limited, localized perspective as opposed to a non local perspective. The spirit is everywhere and nowhere at once. And the soul is rising from that nowhere. The everything comes from nothing and goes back to nothing. And in the course of that process, something is created. And that's who you are. That's who I am. That's who everyone on this planet is. And every physical manifestation is the something that is opposite to both everything and nothing. We can think of everything as the father and nothing as the mother. Now, that's not to downgrade in any way the mother, because the mother is the pure potential that all creating flows through. And that's why in the Jewish symbol of the Mogen David, the Mogen, the star, the morning star, the Star of David is this threshold when something is being created as everything flows out from a point of focus from the nothing, or more to the point, through the nothing. Everything flows through the nothing because the nothingness is a field. In modern science, we call it the 0 point field. Why? Because 0 point, there is no point. There is no, God is a circle whose circumference is nowhere and whose central point is everywhere. So this 0 point field, it's the state of no movement. And in that state of no movement, the energy is existing only as pure potential, pure possibility. And there is no heat. There's no emotion. The energy is not moving. There is no movement. It becomes solid, fixed potential. And last is this space, that in this space of pure potential, it exists in a point. There is no space. The space unfolds as the frequency or vibrate rises out of it. So this is what I wanted to discuss today, was this framework. This framework, the Egyptians used to say that the universe is a triangle, or it's triangular in nature. And this is the quality that we want to look at, that we're now just discovering with quantum physics and the bridge between the electromagnetic atomic physics, that they have this same structure that we engage in when we're engaging in meditation. So Ek Onkar means far more than the average person chanting it has any conception of. But the way each individual will understand that, and not understand that, will base on how they know it. And they will know it in different ways, but it will always lead to the same thing. Ek, there is a creator. The creator exists in a point, a non-dimensional point where there is no space. The Greeks called this Tartarus. The Egyptians called it Duat. It's the bottomless pit, the empty abyss of no thingness. The creator exists there as a non-dimensional point that is has no space, but in the space that we experience, it's everywhere. And because it's everywhere, the center of the universe is also nowhere. So it's a paradox that that point, the creator, the creating, and the creation are one. So the the bridge between the creator and the creation, we can say the bridge between the Father and the Son is the mother. It's the empty void the birth canal through which everything flows. It's a vortex. There's a structure to it. It's an eightfold structure. That's why it's called the matrix. That's why when we play the game of pool, the focus is on the eight ball. If you look at the eight ball, it's a black ball with a white, the shadow of a white cue ball embedded in it, and the figure eight. Because there's this quality that the universe is unfolding through a double toroidal field. And to explain that, I know I'm going pretty deep, but just imagine a donut that pulls itself through its own hole. It's like a car inner tube or a bicycle inner tube that you're spinning around by holding it and turning it in on itself. It will spin that way. But imagine also that that inner tube, that bicycle wheel, is traveling, it's spinning in on itself, and it's also rolling at the same time. This creates a spiral movement. This is the nature of the unfolding of the universe, and we see it everywhere. There are only four shapes in the universe, or categories of shape, and the human mind, the brain, can only recognize four different patterns, I guess is the best term for it. There's the tunnel pattern, the spiral pattern, which is the two patterns I've just described. The tunnel is this tube folding in around on itself. Imagine an inner tube and the little stem that you blow the air into it. It's moving around. It's spinning around. The tube's spinning around, but it's static. It's not turning. And then there's the spiral motion. If you add the turning of the wheel so that the inner tube's uh, nipple is turning around like the hand going around a clock, but it's also spinning around as well. This creates this spiral motion. It's like a corkscrew going into a cork. You're turning it around, or any screw, you're turning it around, but because of the shape, the tapered shape of the screw, it pulls the handle into the cork. This is something similar to the way we're experiencing reality. And then this is also something that's important in understanding our relationship to the planets. The planets aren't exerting a force the way we imagine they are. It's more like they're corks bobbing up and down like buoys, channel markers when you're entering or exiting a harbor, going from a port out to sea. There'll be markers to tell ships where in the channel they're meant to be, if they're going out of the port or into the port. These markers float the way a cork bobs up and down in the water. Well, these planets, their cycles, the planets are, because of their placement and their mass, are indicating fluctuations, gravitational field fluctuations. We've only discovered in the last 10 decade, 2 decades, that there's something that we've hypothesized. We didn't know what gravity was. Complete mystery. But we had this idea of maybe we can measure gravitational waves, that they exist in a way that influence all of what we perceive as reality, I would call actuality. And we're now recognizing, yes, we can recognize gravitational waves moving through the ether. All of these things I'm speaking about today because the mystics who described how we experience reality talked about the same things. So that An electron is this unusual thing that has a it's according to the formulas written over a century ago describing how the quantum reality marries with Einstein's cosmic reality, these great forces and these unimaginably large forces and these unimaginably small forces marry together. They came up with a number, and and the relationship between these two is meant to come out mathematically exactly at 2. That's the number, which is oddly enough, we live in a duality between subatomic quantum reality and then the astrophysics reality that governs everything that we do understand. So there's a doorway, and it's a two-way street between that minute, infinitesimally small realm and that unbelievably galactic reality or universal reality, which is also beyond our comprehension. But these two things meet at a door, a threshold, and the mathematics tell us that the number should be 2. But and that stood until we could develop experiments that could prove whether that was true or not. And there's a problem that we found that the number comes not to 2, but it comes to 0.00232. And the 2 gets, that's rounded up, goes on. And the same with pi. Pi is 3.142, but actually it's not 2. That's rounded. It goes then, if we look deeper, it goes to 159, blah, 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 continue. The threshold in both cases where we understand something and it's rational to where it becomes irrational is this number 2. But the point, the reason I mention this, that the electron is interfacing with the field. So if the electron's measurement of energy, the amount of energy it holds, should be 2, but it's 2.00232, that means this extra energy is tied to it, but we can't actually see it. We can't grasp hold of it. So scientists have called this extra thousandth fraction not photons, but virtual photons. And I'll try to bring this back home to where it makes sense. The virtual photon means that the electron is emitting light and drawing back into itself. So the electron is shimmering, and the shimmering, emitting light, absorbing it, emitting it, absorbing it, it happens so fast that we can't catch the photon. But we know mathematically that explains it. It's a photon coming into being and disappearing back out of being. And it's how the electron is relating to the field. The reason I mention this is what Jesus, when he spoke in Aramaic in the Lord's Prayer, he says, Malkuta Dishmaya. It means the kingdom or the state of the shimmering name. It's what Guru Nanak calls the Nam. When we can slow our minds, our bodies, and our emotions enough, we reach the state of an electron and we begin to interface with the field. And the most important point about this is recognizing that the shimmering isn't coming from the field, it's being generated in the relationship between the electron and what's inside of it and the field that's outside of it. This is the nature of the name itself, the tetragrammaton, what we now call Wahe Guru. And if you listen to your heart, this is why I wanted to bring this conversation about what I was beginning, and I posted as an image last week, but um, bless you, because of last night's conversation, it made me recognize there's some light we can show on those two mantras to understand they have a more profound relationship than we recognize. So there's this spark of the divine that is within us. And that spark of, of the divine is a piece of the divine that exists outside of this 12-dimensional matrix we're trapped within, right? So the symbol for the heart center is a dodecahedron. It's a 12-sided form. Each side has 5 sides to it. Each side is a pentagon. I'll try not to go too deep, but this understanding, it's like this donut I spoke about earlier, except there's 10 faces that are there. They can represent, you can think of them as 10 different universes, or you can also think of it as 5 different universes meeting with each other. This is like the 2 donuts I mentioned earlier, the 2 inner tubes. It's 2 tetrahedral, 2 toroidal forms, one from inside and one from outside, meeting. And a dodecahedron would have 2 opposite positioned pentagons on either edge. Imagine an apple. The apple is the perfect description of this toroidal form. It has the stem going into the apple. That's indicating the field energy coming into the matrix. There's then 10 seeds inside the apple, 5 above, 5 below. There's 5 seed pockets, two seeds each. And then you come out the other end of the apple, what we call the sheep's nose, the end of the apple where it goes into a point. That's the energy coming out. So the apple is a model of the toroidal field that exists at every level in creation. That's why they made the apple the symbol of the Garden of Eden, eating the apple. It was us coming to the point that we understand the shape of the universe. And oddly enough, the human being and the apple we hold in our hand and take a bite of are at the center in orders of magnitude between the infinite and the infinitesimal, between the galactic or universal and the quantum. Literally
It
in
does.
size, human beings and the planet we're on in that order, right? The apple is virtually the center and size of the human being the next jump in magnitude. The earth is then the next jump in magnitude. And all of those three things are indication of greater orders of magnitude going outward in size or inward in size. In fact, man is at the center of the universe. What
Mm.
we spoke about thousands of years ago, certainly hundreds of years ago, was a state of misunderstanding. Those who knew when they said that the world, the earth, or our world is at the center of the universe, always knew that the earth was rotating, orbiting around the sun. They weren't talking about geographically or geometrically in physical space that the sun circled around the earth. They were meaning in orders of magnitude.
Oh, Vedanta,
This
quick
has been
interruption.
understood in the same, the idea of a flat earth has been understood for thousands of years, but it's information held in maps held by a very few portion of humanity. So, how can we escape the trap that's been set? There's a trap that's been set that does what? It creates loose points that draws our energy from us to keep us trapped in this carbon based matrix. I realize this is a lot perhaps to take on, but don't worry. What you don't understand, your soul understands. And
Vedanta,
this is
quick
the
question.
beginning of a convergence. The whole planet's going through this, which means every person on the planet is going through it, but the convergence will have a different flavor for everyone. The point is the feeling of going home. That going home isn't going outward, it's going inward. You're not looking for the God outside of yourself, you're looking for the God inside of yourself, which then connects through this shimmering name, this extra two, extra 2,000 point, 2/1,000ths of of the energy of an electron. You have this within yourself, and you get there by doing three things. Remember the triangle? The shape of the triangle is the shape of the universe. It's also the shape of the three quarks inside a proton, right? This is the smallest particle we know of. And we can't remove a quark and look at it separately. Every time we try to do that, the power, the strong radio uh, tension that when we try to pull one of these quarks apart to look at, if we pull it far enough, suddenly out of nowhere, another quark appears. And what was a triangle reveals itself to actually be a tetrahedron, a 10, a four-sided uh, form, the simplest form. It's like a triangular pyramid. And all that is the field, what you look at, has 3 points. Any field, any circle is defined by 3 points. Any plane is divided by 3 points. The fourth point, when you try to look at the field as one edge of the field separate from the rest, suddenly it distorts the field so much that you become aware that you are the point of view looking at the field. This is what the observer effect is. All the mystery of the quantum physics is just you, who you really are, is this God point that exists
Wow.
inside at exactly the center of any triangle. And when you try to analyze the pattern enough, when you begin to recognize patterns, the patterns begin to reflect back to you. You begin to see your own patterns. And as you see your own patterns, you realize you are just a pattern creating being trapped inside the patterns you inherited. I hope that's making some sense. And then we'll try to just look at the two mantras from yesterday. Um, but before we start that, I'll just open to double check. Maybe you're getting a small percentage of what I'm sharing. It's not gone too far. And also, if you are following, if there's any questions in relationship to that. And ultimately, remember, if you don't have any background, any understanding of any scientific conversation, just feel. It's called a field because it's the past tense of feeling something. All the universe is based on feeling. And that feminine awareness of feeling is actually what creates everything. We have to get out of our minds and back into our feelings and recognize our feelings aren't real. They're language placed on top of sensation. And what we're trying to do is get back to a sense, a sensation that's beyond the physical senses. And that's a sense of purpose. Our sense of purpose comes from a sense of meaning. When we have a sense of meaning, what's it about? Well, the universe is empty of meaning, except the meaning we bring to it. And the meaning we bring to it gives us a sense of purpose. And when we have this personal sense of meaning, naturally out of that flows a sense of purpose. And both of those flow from the true nature of who each and every one of us is, which is a manifestation of localized, unconditional love. We're all unconditional, unlocal, universal love being expressed and experienced through a localized point of view. I hope that makes some sense. And if there's any questions, please feel free to ask. But then we'll look and do very short repetition of yesterday's mantras and see if you experience them differently from the point of view that I've just described, and then how I redefine those mantras as they were given by the gurus. So is there anything anybody wants to ask or point out or realization or feeling they're
Yeah,
having? All of those
I've
are
got one
valid.
question. Do you have any images that we can actually see? Like, when you give the example of the apple, the energy flow.
Yes, I'll prepare those. I've done this 3 times in my lifetime, and I've had my entire corpus for strange reasons of having my stone phone stolen or other things, lost them completely. But each time I didn't distress because each time I did them, I recognized flaws in my view, and I had learned something, or Guru had revealed something more that meant I've redrawn them. Or so I will certainly go back, find what I had, make sure I make the adjustments. And if this conversation we're having is to continue, then I'm happy to do that. Whatever questions you have, I know that they're the things I need to go back and look at and show. But I would point out, I don't believe Isaac Newton actually got hit on the head with an apple. I believe that's a story he told that was completely true, but made up to express a deeper truth.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Um, yeah, sure. Is there anything else? Or is everybody just stupefied
Uh,
with too much information?
for, for me, I'm Jijar here. For me, what came, what you discuss actually is very much saying what Gurbani said. तू तू करता तो हुआ मुझ में रहा न हूँ जब आपा पर्दा मिट गया तद देखा था तू ही तू. So exactly what you are saying is when you go deeper you see yourself, you see him, and when you go to the outer area it's also him.
Yeah,
uh, what you are basically saying is, look, the same circle is vibration is taking place in me. Now my body is on Earth, and Earth is going around the solar system. But this solar system is now going around the Milky Way, and the Milky Way is going. So we are actually going around. We can go to the bigger picture and get the same answer, zero fill. Or if you go down into ourselves, it's exactly the same.
absolutely. If you
Yeah,
wouldn't mind posting that Shabbat, I would greatly appreciate it. And what it reminds me of the song, to he, to he, to he, to he.
yeah, correct.
You know, the
Yeah,
cold, the cold, sorry, the hot wind doesn't touch me. Yes, that realization of I'm outside the fire. And
correct.
and this is the important part. This is really important part. So the bridge, the one is the stillness, the physical stillness. And then the most difficult part is quieting the emotions. Quieting, this is the what the heart does. The vagus nerve runs from all the way in centers of the brain that relate to all the organs. It then runs through all the organs, and it's the longest uh, nerve in the body. And
Yep,
what's it doing? It runs through the organs to what? Organize, to organize the bridge between the mind and the body, between the cosmic mind and the quantum field. And so you can't create the space, you can't open the space for God to come out of the point and feel his presence flowing out towards the higher dimensional geometry, the two dimensions that exist outside the 12 dimensions of the carbon matrix. When we do that, when we enter, Jesus is there's 14 stations of the cross, and in Gurbani, what do we have? Japa. It's not necessary. I'm not saying that the Mole mantra isn't saying repeat the name, but I'm also saying this is how the universe is created. The carbon matrix, the 12 strand DNA or 12 dimensional matrix. If you don't know how to center yourself and to bring that fire down to an amber, that raging fire down to an amber inside. If you don't know how to quiet the emotions, you won't be able to open the space that's in the center point, in Dwat. But if you can do that, now we enter the etheric space, which governs the shape, the fractal nature of reality. And we begin to go in, to go out. And then we go out to go in. The door opens from the inside, the door that we've all been standing at, knocking, waiting. What does Jesus say? Knock and the door shall be opened. Not force the door open. Knock and the door shall be open, which means the door you're waiting to open to divine, to Waheguru, you have to present yourself. The infinite lost itself to become tiny sparks and of finite reality. And now that finite being or finite bride needs to present herself. The finite twin has to come and present herself and wait for her husband, Lord, to open the door from the inside. Is that making some sense?
Yep,
Yep.
makes
Okay.
perfect sense. Yeah.
Right. So now we quickly, because I know I've gone well over. It's 117 here, so it's later for you. Um, we look at the two mantras: Gobinde Mukunde Udare Apare, Haryang Karyang Naname Akame. This is the doorway. This is the doorway from outside to inside. But you, as the bride, have to present yourself because you have to come to the realization of you, unknowingly, it's not your fault, but you created the prison you're within. You are the warden of the prison. You are the sustainer of the prison. Imagine it that it's like an electric fence, or even better, an electrically controlled prison cell. That the door closes and the lock is magnetic. It's not physical. The guards don't have to come around and turn a key. They just turn the juice off. The door can be opened. Well, you, the little you, the persona self, is the mask that hides the jailer. Your shadow, everything that you're afraid of. I'm not enough. I'm too late. I didn't do what I'm not good enough. I'm not intelligent enough. I'm not caring enough. I don't have enough. All of those fears you hide in the shadow of your persona so that nobody knows whatever the thing, which isn't true. It's just a decision you made when you weren't qualified to make the decision at about 3.5. Three was about the last time any of us were authentic. We were really children of God. And we want to get back to that place. So we have to look at, what is it that I'm afraid of other people seeing about me? We have to have the courage to be vulnerable, to when we meet another person, to say, well, this is me. This is the stuff I'm afraid of. And say it in a truly compassionate way. The other person will go, oh my God, that person just showed what he's afraid of. Maybe I can trust them to show what I'm afraid of. And when we get beyond this, we virtually pull the plug on the prison cell. So this realization is when we say Gobinde, the sustainer, my little ego self's shadow, the bit I'm afraid to look at, that's what's sustaining the prison I'm in. That's what's sustaining the matrix as a prison, as a dark prison that no light gets into. Then Gobindi Mukunde, that means by pulling the plug, by looking at my shadow, by allowing the dragon to come up and have a good look at it, or even better, going down and having a good look at the dragon and saying, it's okay, you're fine. We all have it. I let go of that darkness. I liberate this is what Chardi color really means. Chardi color is what? To purge the darkness, to go inside, look at what we're ashamed of, all the things we think that make us unlovable by others and by ourselves and by God. When we go and look at those, no, that's what we came for, to experience that darkness and then let go of it, to recognize we were always good enough. We were always more than enough. And then what happens? Then we go from being the sustainer, we become the liberator. We go from the liberator to seeing that we are the light in the darkness. We are the light inside the matrix, and we are the enlightener. And when we realize that we're enlightener, we realize we are infinite. This is just a day at the office. And that's crossing the threshold, because when we cross the threshold from infinite, we recognize who we are really are. We are the destroyer. Gobinde Mukunde Udare Apari Haryang. I am the destroyer, what? Of all the obstacles that I placed in my way. And when I destroy those obstacles, I destroy the obstacles my parents placed in their way, which I inherited in their parents and their parents, 7 generations back. And when I do that, I give the opportunity to 7 generations forward not to hire my ancestors' shit. Their sticky, gooey, blackstrap molasses that connects us. That's what karma is. It's not an outside force. It's an inside force. We see what we look for. And if we look for ourselves to be these unworthy, unlovable shadows of the divine, we see that and we go farther and farther and farther into the conical pit of hell. But when we look for the light in ourselves and in others, we recognize God is in everyone. If I can't see God in everyone, I can't see God in anyone. And we recognize the situation we're in. This is a learning experience. If I can't see God in everything, I can't see God in anything. We're all here for the same reason, to wake the heck up. And when we do that, then we realize we're the creator and we can create limitlessly. Not we don't create limitations through limiting beliefs. We create limiting unlimited ability through unlimited knowing. And from that, Gobindi Mukundi Udari Apari Harim Karim Nirname Akame. No name, no desire. It doesn't mean we're desireless as a being. We can make anything because we haven't named what we want yet. And we have no desire, become as a blank slate. So then what we do instead is say, what meaning do I bring to life? And what purpose do I have? And this is then the Greek spring and summer Easter. What am I willing to die for? What would I sacrifice my life for? Now my life has meaning. Doesn't mean I have to die. And it's not what Jesus talked about when he said being born again, or Nanak saying you don't have to die, wait to go to heaven. You could go to heaven now in this life. And that's discovering what's worth dying for. That gives life its meaning. That's Jesus on the cross, on the hill. That's something higher, a higher goal, a higher objective to go to. And then what's my life purpose? I wake up every day and I walk a little closer to that goal, that purpose. And there's only one day. I wake up, there's a day I born, the day die, and today. And yesterday only exists in today, and tomorrow only exists in today as a memory and as an imagination, as a recall and as a prediction. But all there is this one day, and this one day we can roll the rock in the bottom of the pit of hell, and we can roll it a little further towards heaven. And that rock is Earth, the planet we're on, and we can tilt it a little further away from hell and a little further towards heaven. That's why we're here. And when we do that, we attain the state of pure bliss. The healing mantra, I hope, since nobody said I have to shut the heck up, I'll finish the last thing. This is the same thing with the healing mantra. Rama Dasa Sase Soham. Again, eightfold. It's the way out of the matrix. Ra, I am God. Rama. Da, earth. In between that is Ma, Rama, the mother, the father, mother. Da, earth, this place that we're on. It's neutral. It's the something that's given birth to by everything and nothing. Rama da sa, infinite, infinity. Sa literally is the sound of infinity. So this is an infinite process. The mother, father creates something where we come to infinitely play. We play out this alchemical wedding. And then sa, stay, so, hung. Infinity, I am thou. It's again moving, understanding where we are. We're in this matrix. It's a prison cell, an eight cell prison cell. We're trapped within it because we think we're outside of it. When we recognize the trap we created for ourselves, we then begin to let the light in and it turns into a prism. Not a prison, but a prison which starts to reflect our full spectrum nature. We become the rainbow bridge between this world and the next. And that means in both directions, the minute world and the ultimate order of magnitude world. I hope that seemed useful. And I would suggest that we all go to bed and do these two mantras one after another. The first, to focus and remember who you are. Every person on this planet is part of the Kulsa, whether they know it or not. And the Kulsa, as we think of it, seek, but also the Kulsa as all the awakened people in remembering spirituality or just waking up a little bit early to help the others meet the dawn of the new day. Thank you so much for letting me ramble and become a torrent. Um, but it's a pleasure, and you are all such beautiful beings. I can't tell you how shiny all of you are.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Vardata ji. Even your what you call your rambling, it is still brilliant to us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So brilliant and so enlightening.